times an immigration detention camp. The U.S. war on Cuba is targeted propaganda that falsely paints the government of Cuba as sponsors of terrorism. The U.S. war on Cuba is more than 600 failed assassination attempts on Fidel Castro. The U.S. war on Cuba is a ban on domestic travel to Cuba and the prevention of cultural exchange between Cubans and Americans.
That's right, that's right.
The U.S. war on Cuba is Trump's order in March to revoke the legal protection of over 300,000 Cubans under the humanitarian parole program. The U.S. war on Cuba is targeted deportations of more than 600 Cubans. The U.S. war on Cuba is unequal protection of right-wing Cuban Americans. The U.S. war on Cuba is embodied by hardliners like Marco Rubio and phony political front organizations like the Foundation for Human Rights in Cuba, which targets and doxes former Cubans living in the U.S., or Victims of Communism Memorial Foundation that lobbies to continue the brutal economic blockade. The U.S. war on Cuba is a multi-front, coordinated campaign of imperialist plunder and colonial control aimed at undermining the revolution, the sovereignty of Cuba, and the health and future of their people. So who benefits from that war? It turns out that the U.S. and Cuban American hardliners have more motives than just regime change. The occupation of Guantanamo Bay is a lucrative enterprise for U.S. corporations at the expense of U.S. taxpayers. The Guantanamo Bay Detention Center is the most expensive prison in the world, demonstrably. Estimates from 2019 put the annual cost of the facility at $540 million. Today, with the practice of replacing soldiers with more costly contractors, the estimated cost is as high as $44 million per individual for 15 people that are remaining there today. The most expensive prison in the United States is $103,000 per inmate, by the way. In January of this year, the Pentagon awarded $249 million in new naval-based construction contracts to U.S.-based construction companies. The same company, by the way, that changed its name after they settled with the U.S. on charges of fraudulent labor practices. A report on legal proceedings on the island found a single lawyer consult that cost taxpayers $1.4 million. What? As the U.S. continues to wage its war on migrants here at home, Trump earlier this year threatened to expand the use of Guantanamo Bay to host a deportation detention center that could hold up to 30,000 people. While that's proven impractical, probably because of that cost, the threat itself undermines Cuba's sovereignty. We see how the war on Cuba is part of a larger war on the independence and sovereignty of all peoples in the region, from Venezuela to Colombia to Puerto Rico to the Philippines, and even more broadly, a war on all migrants and working class people across the globe. We condemn recent escalations from U.S. military, including strikes on civilian boats off the coast of Colombia and Venezuela, and naval troop deployments in Puerto Rico. The Resist U.S.-led war movement rejects the continued subjugation of the Cuban and Latin American peoples under the grip of U.S. imperialist control. You can join us on November 8th as we're launching a new virtual campaign focused on exposing the legacy of the Treaty of Paris and the history of colonialism in this region. We call for an end to the barbaric economic blockade of Cuba imposed by desperate gringos in a dying empire. We call for the complete withdrawal of the U.S. from Guantanamo Bay and the closure of the naval base. We call for the complete and permanent closure of the detention center. We reject any plans to expand the use of Guantanamo Bay to detain migrants. We call for Cuban self-determination and a just and lasting peace. Cuba sí! Cuba sí! Cuba sí!